it's hilarious when you meet someone who hasn't heard a cliche saying.
Yeah.
It's like mind blowing to them.
Yeah.
It's like, someone might have heard that and been like, "Whoa, food for souls."
Right?
Damn.
You're telling me hard work does pay off? Huh.
Yeah.
Like things like that. Like, yeah, dude.
Yeah. All right. Welcome, everybody, to Waiting to Dry, the podcast that since beginning of 2018, we've been collecting artist interviews from the Bay Area. Some people say we capture them in little red and white balls.
No one says that.
I do now. So, a wild Segrove has appeared.
Segrove.
My name is Sergio Lopez.
I'm Josh Lawyer.
And Daniel Segrove.
Holy shit. I imagine you practicing that in the mirror with your shirt off.
Dude, that theme song has to be hyped right now.
He doesn't, God damn it. I'm
Disappoint?
disappoint. That's
Radio
the word.
5,
That's the
4.
word. He doesn't disappoint with the intros. Always coming through. Well, thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
course, man.
thanks
Thank you for having me.
coming all the way out to Santa Rosa for
Yeah. Yeah, we
Scenic drive, you know?
it is. You can stop and paint pretty much anywhere.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I've been trying to catch you for the last, but you're a tough Pokemon.
I'm elusive, man. You can at least Ultra Ball catch me, man.
God damn it. Hell yeah. So thank you for joining us on this Pokemon podcast.
Of course, yeah.
MJ's just losing her mind right now.
Yeah, you're a huge Pokemon.
Oh, yeah, man. You should see my Bidoof tattoo on my arm, right? It's just,
Wait, a what?
it was like one of the newer ones. It was like
okay.
a derpy squirrel raccoon thing. I don't know.
Someone's
the way it
learning
looks.
how. I'm like, I got first gen in me.
Right, yeah.
We'll have
that's
to trade Pokedex later.
You don't want
Squirtle with the shades, right?
you don't want this fire.
Right.
But yeah. So does Sergio know you better than I do? I've met you only once.
Yeah, well, what's unfortunate, whenever I meet Sergio at shows, I'm always like right about to leave. And I feel really guilty. It's like, hey, Sergio, how's it going, man? Oh, dude, I'm about to leave right now. But,
It's just because I'm always late to everything. So that's the only.
smart, though.
He's trying to dodge Sergio on ecstasy.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I think because I only met you once. You're very elusive.
I don't go out to shows much. I'm very much a hermit.
Yeah, people say you lurk in the shadows.
Definitely, yeah. I pull the strings. That's all I do.
Yeah.
But I remember the first time I saw your work, you were part of like this college collective, and I was like looking through the work. I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And then I got to your work, and I was like, "Who the fuck is this guy? Like, and how dare he?"
Yeah, you had no idea how hard it was to get those pieces in the show too. Like they were like,
Oh, really?
like Irene. Like I love her to death, but like she was definitely against it. Like this is weird stuff.
Yours?
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Like you burn it and like rip it. Like why would you?
Yeah, I remember when I went there, I was going through it, and she was like, "Look at this person." I was like, "Cool." And then I got to yours. I was like, "What the fuck?" So I put in good words, all positivity for me.
Sure.
But it blew me away from the get-go. Your work, it's just, I don't know, you're pretty masterful with a pencil.
Unfortunately, I'm horrible with oil paint. So when I was like studying to get my painting major, I was like, oh, I'll stick to the drawing side because that just came more naturally to me. It just made more sense in my head, just working on with more a 2-dimensional medium, right? It's very flat. Also just the artists I tend to like seem to be more draftsmen than kind of more the painterly painters, like say like a Sargent or something.
Right.
I'm more like attracted to like more of a like Nikolai Fetchin type of thing, right? Like
Okay.
lots of great modeling, line work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
His drawings more than his paintings.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 That's awesome. So that was kind of your way of problem solving, not wanting to oil paint. Is that what
Well,
you're saying?
yeah, it's like, well, I got this bachelor's degree in painting, but I don't really like painting. So how do I put this to use? So.
Yeah,
Right.
I was curious about that because
Yeah.
your work, like your like graphite work is like mixed medium, but it's very much
sure.
like the graphite seems to be the star of the show. You know, it's
Definitely,
like everything
yeah.
is there to complement that.
Yeah, the color and everything else is just like kind of accents for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my style kind of came about naturally throughout college. I would balance. Sorry, I keep moving away from the mic, but I would naturally balance kind of taking abstract classes with more of the fundamental classes, like very kind of traditional work. So over time, it's like, you know, I love traditional work, but it's not what I'm going to be known for. Like, I don't want to be just the solely traditional guy. And then I love abstraction, but they kind of miss out sometimes on like modeling form and kind of
Right.
the illusion of light. It's more of like, you know, flat shapes, more energy, stuff like that. But
Right.
so how do I like figure out and combine them? So throughout my, you know, studies, that's the whole thing I was doing. So that's why I think a lot of people, when they saw my work when I first graduated, they're like, oh, it already seems like you got a nice aesthetic going, you know? But even at that stage, I was still kind of, it was just the first stepping stone, right?
Right.
That's kind of something I struggle with like now as far as like committing to something I was just figuring out like a couple years ago. And like, even though like, I'm glad it got like really popular and people liked it, but at the same time, it's like, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life now.
Oh, I know.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
know
I
how
got to
you
do
feel.
this
Yeah.
this one style for like the next potentially 30 to 40 years.
Right.
Yeah. So get used to it.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you, because there does seem like your work did do where you do still do a lot of graphite, but there is like this transition. You kind of seem to be more painter, or like paint seemed to be almost a balance between the two. Like you were doing one and then the other. Is that, are you kind of doing the old stuff because you love it or because you kind of feel that obligation?
I try to do whatever I make like genuinely. Like if I just genuinely feel like doing a drawing, I'll do a drawing. If I
sure.
want to do more paint, I'm just gonna do more paint, right? Like I try not to like be obligated to
The
a style
viewer?
or even to the viewer. I'm probably a very selfish painter and that like I just paint for my own
understand that.
enjoyment, right?
Yeah.
Especially with like I think Instagram. Like when I started getting a following, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then like it just really started to jump more and more. I was like, now it's getting scary. Like I feel like obligated to do something, right?
For sure.
When I just because I was
It's a good
always
problem though.
yeah, I mean I can't complain, right? It's like I always feel bad, like oh, I only have 1,000 likes. And, like people are like I'm lucky if I get 30, right?
Yeah.
So like you gotta get that issue, but it was just something that was weird for me because I was always really late to the whole social media scene. I don't have a Facebook, never had MySpace, and then I
Right.
didn't get Instagram till I graduated in like 2012 or something.
Damn.
So yeah, it was kind of new to me, and just to get like this response was like, is this normal? It's like just I guess this is just what people do, right?
Right.
But then yeah, over time it was just strange in that I was still figuring out things. So just to get all these compliments so early, like
Right.
it was kind of throwing me off as far as like, well, this was always just a stepping stone, you know, like this wasn't going to be the final, you know, my
Right.
signature thing. Right. So this whole time, cause I'm still fairly young, I'm 27 and I still feel like as far as that age is kind of still in my infancy for my artwork.
For sure.
So there's like a lot of growing I still would like to do, you know?
Right.
yeah.
So it's a weird thing with
Like
social
you're going to
media.
evolve. Some would
Exactly,
say
yeah.
you'd evolve into a next level Pokemon.
Exactly. Who knows? Getting like wings or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, kind of being a artist with this like new way to spread information, right? Like on
For
social
sure.
media and just people judging it on like a small screen and things like that. So it was an interesting dynamic to kind of embrace a little bit, but also I don't want to feel kind of defined by it either.
Right. That's interesting. So when you go about kind of like this being the defined style of Daniel Segrove, and you have this kind of, this isn't where I want to end, do you have like an end kind of like idea, or is it just like, I want to take the next step towards something like how does that work out?
I guess it would just be kind of balancing complexity and maturity. You know what I mean? Like, I think like over time you want your work to feel like more complex and more mature visually. Like sometimes I don't want to do like a fully rendered piece just because it's like I don't feel like flexing that skill all the time. You know, like I don't want to like keep boasting like, oh yeah, look how three-dimensional I can make something, right? Like sometimes I just want to do flat shapes, or I just want to do something that's more gestural, and or sometimes I just want to do like a quick line drawing, right, and just throw that up. So it's an interesting balance.
For sure. Do you like? I noticed with you like the graphite stuff between the graphite stuff and your paintings. Your graphite stuff seems like it's so much more rendered, and the paintings seem like it's almost pulled back as like
For sure. No, definitely. Yeah. I think it's just kind of embracing strengths of mediums. Like, you know, paint is such like kind of more towards sculpture than it is to drawing, right? So I kind of go to that side, like where I just leave, you know, the mark as the mark.
Right.
But with the rendering, it's just you could get those, especially with graphite, like super soft transitions. So kind of like embrace the strengths of different mediums. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good contrast too between like the flat abstraction and then really rendering out the form.
And I think it just helps me too, as far as like my own interests and longevity of hopefully my career. Because it definitely helps me not get like so burnt out on just I'm doing another face, I'm doing another highly rendered portrait, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the cool things with that though is that there is this weird thing where both of your works, although they're very different, like from painting to graphite, the main subject, there is like a weird where you can almost connect the dots somehow.
For sure. Yeah. I think it is important to at least have, you know, like hints of like, this is still my style, right? Like you can still hopefully spot that, like, oh yeah, it looks like a Segrove work, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's kind of just expanding my ideas. Like some I like really minimal, some I like to just focus on like large shapes and like figuring out like putting puzzle pieces together. But yeah, it's just I don't think it's good to be just defined by one style.
Yeah.
Like it just seems counterintuitive as like someone who's supposed to be creative, right? Like, oh, you're so creative, you only do one thing for like years and years and years. That's very creative.
That's like the anti-artist idea.
Yeah.
You see with musicians all the time where they want them to play the hits and they're like, I don't want to play fucking hits. I want to play new stuff. I'm an artist, not a record
Free
player.
Bird.
Exactly.
It's I think at a certain point it's like you're fulfilling a gallery's idea of an artist, not an artist's idea of an artist.
For sure. Yeah. The one thing I was curious about with your work, especially, is like subject matter. Like it seems like the olden days, or like that kind of like there seems like there's this narrative you're kind of trying to talk about where it's about like the good old days maybe, but not necessarily as that, but it's because there is moments where it seems like you're ripping it apart or destroying it. And I don't know if it's necessarily like that's the narrative you're trying to talk about, like the I don't know, destruction of the idea of good old days.
For sure. There is some of that, right? Because that whole time was like me just starting my like long distance relationship with my fiance now.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. So kind of some of that, like kind of this idea where I would do a lot of portraits of her and then maybe like breaking it up just because that kind of feeling of disconnection or distance or frustration even. But I think also just from purely technical view, I like the contrast of kind of smooth form with kind of more harsh texture. Like they have like a nice balance with each other, I feel like. It just goes, with that idea of contrast, like, you know, just the simple, like if you put a square next to a circle, it makes the circle look more round and the square looks more structural, right? So like things like that. If I put something really highly rendered and detailed with something that's like kind of more just empty space or even just the rips, it makes them feel, what's the word am I looking for? Throw me some like for help. It makes it feel more enhanced.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the old juxtaposition.
Oh, ding, 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 ding. 1,000 winner.
That word is banned in our podcast, by the way. we beep it out.
Nice.
It's like Wayne's World where he's playing the guitar and he's playing Stairway to Heaven. The guy points and the sign says no stairway.
Right, yeah.
But fuck. It's also like the idea of like one thing I noticed too with that whole idea is that your work, a lot of it seems like a snapshot, and then the like gestural stuff seems like movement. So it's like this thing where it's like a movement frozen in time, and then all your work seems like the stuff surrounding the figure seems like it's like pushing movement, or like it's like this gesture that you as the artist did. So I always thought that was super interesting as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of my style just comes from my love of kind of all genres of art. You know, it's like I really love highly rendered pieces, but I love really gestural abstract pieces.
Right.
I love complicated pieces, but I love minimalism. So it's like me trying to figure out how do I put all of this into one thing. You know?
Yeah, you're like a, what is it, dualist? Is that right?
Dualist?
It's like a black or white or something like that. Is that right?
I think so.
I might be fucking wrong. I don't know words.
It's correct.
Yeah, we'll go with it.
But yeah, that's something I did kind of, especially leading up to this interview. You're just like, I'm just trying to consume your work, and there is like this. I just kind of noticed that it always seemed like there was like these two parallels of like this, and then the polar opposite of that. This, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That, and I was like, I don't know if he means to do this, or I'm just kind of picking up on that like person. Like, yeah, I might be reading it dead wrong, but. I mean, it's good to know that I read it right, so I can pat myself on the back later while I'm all by myself.
Read me like a book.
So that means you look at other different types of art then, like photography and sculpture and all that too, or no?
I did when I was younger, but I'm honestly trying to just stop using all social media, like, because I'm so, I guess you could say, like, creatively impressionable. Like, I get so inspired so easily, right? Which is a good thing, but at the same time, it's a problem in that it makes me indecisive as far as where to go. Because I'm like, I really love this texture, but this thing over here is like really contradicts that, but I like that too. And it's like, so it's that weird thing of just being super indecisive.
Yeah. You see someone doing their thing amazing, and you're like, I want to do what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you're like, but I'm doing my own thing.
Right.
And, yeah. That is the shitty end of the social media stick, kind of
overstimulated for sure.
Yeah.
That's why I actually like Instagram like hot potato. Like, I'm just like, all right, get it off as quickly as possible. Send a couple animal videos to my fiance. All right, I'm good. You know, I'm off this thing.
Hell yeah. That's why the Reddit is like one of my favorite things, because it's like this weird social media thing, but it's really like about the thing rather than the person. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like everyone's trying to be like, look at me. It's kind of like everyone's like, has anyone seen this? Like, this is awesome. We're like, look what I saw. Like, this shit is cool.
Definitely.
Yeah, they like blatantly keep you from promoting yourself on there, right? Yeah.
Well, like, Instagram's like the polar opposite, right? It's just all about me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was weird. I used to be on Flickr. I mean, I still am, but not really. But Flickr, at least in my community, was very much like, I mean, I was doing it when I was doing graffiti, and it was very much like that whole, like, no one self-promotes. Everyone is kind of like, you don't know who you're talking to. You just are talking to someone because everyone's trying to be secretive and not get arrested and those kind of things. And then when I moved to Instagram, I was like, oh, all these graffiti artists are kind of blatantly going like, this is me. And
that was me, man.
Yeah. And you're like, you're doing some shit that's illegal.
Right. Yeah.
I don't get it, but whatever. Teach their own.
Right. Sure.
So you went to the same escuela as Sergio, right?
Yep, Academy of Art alumni. I wasn't sure out our mascot, but I don't even know what it was. It's like, what were Knights or something, I think?
I think so.
Right?
Art schools have mascots?
Yeah.
Well, our art school had like a soccer team.
Yeah, the beret.
The beret. Yeah. I think they had like a soccer team.
Really?
Yeah.
That would compete?
Yeah.
With other art schools or other?
Yes, I don't even know who they compete with.
You go to art school strictly for the sports.
I got a full ride, bro.
Exactly, yeah. One-man baseball team.
Hell yeah. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was a great experience.
All right, on to the next step. I'm just kidding.
I learned a lot from my instructors. You know, I had a great, teachers that like really pushed me and motivated me. So that was like really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Who are the teachers that stood out for you?
Well, definitely Ho Jun Lee.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know Hojin, right?
Yeah. Student. Same time I went there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Takashi's
And now
another
he's
really good one
inspiring
too.
people.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Especially like with his
Just
style,
kidding.
like you can see how I got some of my like really rendered things from him.
Okay.
Because he goes deep as far as like layering and layering and layering.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So you would, I guess, recommend it for kids?
Definitely. Make the best of it, right? It's just like any school, make the best of it, right? Just
I'm just fake being sour. Over here.
okay, yeah.
Man,
One
Well,
for
here, let
my
me talk some
column.
shit. Well, you know, it also makes you like super cookie cutter, and you know,
yeah, suck it, Sergio.
Yeah.
Shit.
Thing. What the hell?
I guess my question is, do they still remember me there?
like, yeah. I mean, they remember me. They just shoo me off campus whenever I stop by. That's fine.
Yeah.
For the longest time, they thought your last name was who?
Was Garcia.
I mean, like Sergio who? Just kidding. But one thing I did want to talk about was consistency versus innovation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this topic that seemed like pretty well to bring up with you, is because at least for me as an artist, there is like this urge to push to be innovative with my own work, and like go down different rabbit holes, but there is that like obligation to feel consistent.
For sure.
Not like for instance, Beck as a musician, he's like, I want to make every album different. And to me, that's like always like, no, I don't want to listen to an artist that changes that quickly as far as music is concerned.
Yeah, like it's hard to grasp them really, right?
Yeah.
And I think it also kind of goes with just being like more mature as an artist. I also like aim for kind of like really just sticking with the subject and like really seeing like what it's about, right?
Right.
That's why like I do try to innovate, but hopefully like you can still see some connections, right? Like there's
Right, for
something
sure.
that's definitely I'm still kind of playing with, like, space and information and like how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Or I should like elaborate information versus like empty space, right? Like kind of things like that.
And it also goes to like how I said earlier about your paintings being very similar, or like you can see the connection between them and like the stuff that's mixed medium, with the like graphite being the star of the show or whatever.
For sure.
There's that, even though you can see that there's a push towards you being, pursuing painting or as like a big medium for you to pursue it.
For sure.
And even the subject matter, like I know you were painting your girlfriend or drawing your girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, my brain just like
No, for like the longest time, yeah. I was
Yeah.
like, she is my muse. She still is. Like when she gets here, you're gonna be seeing a lot more paintings of her for sure. Free model, right? Take advantage. But yeah, it's just that was a big part of me for the first couple of years, right? Just first getting into like a long distance relationship. I should clarify, she lives in South Korea. We met in college, that whole deal, right?
Right,
Visa
okay.
went out,
Till his old
Right
time.
on, yeah.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Star-crossed lovers. No. So
Yeah, that must be, first of all, that must be a brutal as shit long distance relation. I mean, like,
yeah, I mean, like I always say, like if she was any farther, she'd be closer, right?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's a long distance relationship, long, right? Yeah,
Yeah, what was that movie where they cut into the core of the earth, where they like tried to see?
right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
go to China type of thing. Right?
Yeah.
yeah.
You're like,
That's pretty much what it was.
you're doing some research and you're like, is that possible?
Jeez. But yeah, I mean, after a while, like with anything, it kind of gets routine, right? Like we talk every day, so whenever we meet, it's not like hey, what you been up to? It's like,
Right.
like obviously, it's
Yeah.
like just everything's back to normal, right? It's just
For
not
sure.
difficult.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we've been doing it for almost 8 years now.
Wow.
Long
It's
distance,
impressive.
yeah.
How
But I
often
mean-
is she able to come out here?
Well, we come out like once a year. Like I'll go to Korea once a year, and then she'll come out here once a year for like
Okay,
2 weeks
right on.
each. So like 4 weeks out of the year. Doesn't sound
Right.
like much, but it is like
For sure.
No,
a
that's,
relationship for sure.
You guys probably just are like, eyes just, do you guys even break eye contact?
Or we're just like locked the whole time.
It's
So,
like-
like hands, like
People are just like, you're just eating food while looking at
Exactly,
each
yeah.
other.
we have hired feeders, so they just
Yeah. Well, that's good that we got that on record. So if they ever make a like a Jackson Pollock movie, but of you, they'll have those scenes in
story,
there.
And they have to amp it up a lot, right? Like it was also during wartime, right? Like,
You're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, also I think with just
it is wartime.
Oh yeah, exactly. There's always wartime.
You just weren't in it.
Yeah, so it is slightly based on a true story, right? Like the whole Hollywood thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, especially I think with technology, right? It's so easy. Skype, free chats online. I mean, on your phone. So like all these things, it makes it a lot easier. So,
yeah, for sure.
I'm not like writing a letter, waiting for like a month to get a reply. Yeah.
Dearest love.
Exactly.
Clarabelle. My name's not Clarabelle.
Yeah.
War on the front line.
There was this funny SNL skit I watched that always sticks with me, where it's like, it's about kind of that, but it's like a modern take on that. So the guy's like, hey, blah blah blah, dearest love. Also, like it's like P.S. Please send like tit pic, and then like he gets the next letter. He's like, then he writes her a letter, and it's like, well, it kind of sucks because I told all the guys you were going to send me one. So now I look like an idiot.
I think I know exactly which one you're talking about. I think I watch it like all the time. It's like he writes a long letter and she replies K or something like that. It's like, thanks. It took a month for me to get this. So.
But yeah. I feel when me and MJ were dating, I was in San Jose and she's up here in Santa Rosa. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was long. I was like, oh, this sucks. Like
it's brutal.
So I don't even understand the whole South Korea.
It's like luckily someone always has the worst, right?
Yeah.
Like, even when I try to flex, like, we've been doing it 7 years, man. I'm like hardcore like that. Like I meet someone else like, oh, I did it for 12. Oh, jeez.
Yeah. My husband's like an astronaut. And he's been in the space station for years now.
He's in the Peace Corps right now,
Exactly.
Like that.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
For sure.
But it's not. Then you look at that person, you go, "Well, it's not a competition."
Exactly. Yeah, but it kind of is too. Everyone's a competition all the time. Right?
You say that to yourself when you want. You're like, "Damn it, he beat me." But
sorry, we can't get married yet. Let's do this a couple more years. Increase our prestige. Put us on hold for
just a lifelong, long relationship. We've been married for 50 years, but we've lived across the country.
Yep. Hit up Vice, get that documentary going. Check this out, dude.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So so you also have been teaching. That's like a new thing.
Yeah.
And kind of doing like workshop classes as well.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of workshops just kind of to get my feet wet, see like how I like teaching. And luckily, a lot of my classes were kind of at a college level. Like people who came were always like my age or a little older.
Wasn't any of those wine and draw people?
Yeah, like Sunday painters, everything. Yeah, it was like a really great experience. I enjoyed it. And then just from building, that up on my resume, my good buddy Emilio Villalba, who you had on the show, everyone check him out.
Emilio.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, man. He's the best.
Where's the hell yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. Air horns, too.
That's actually Emilio.
Oh, yeah. Nice. I should recognize him. But yeah, like he helped me out getting the job at where he teaches at Cogswell, which is kind of more of a animation school. So it's really interesting to kind of show them or introduce them to like more fine art people. Exactly, just how to use a pencil, right? Like,
This is a pencil.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not an iPad pencil. Careful, it does break.
Where's the plastic on it?
So yeah, it's been an interesting dynamic just to see like kind of their eyes light up to things that I always thought were like super basic, right?
Yeah, I get it. They suck.
No, I didn't say that. We'll edit this out right now.
The views expressed by our guests.
Do you ever just drop the pencil, like a drop the mic? You ever just like
all the demos all the time.
No.
Sign it, throw it out to the
sexual
crowd.
chocolate. Drop the mic. Walk out of the class and throw one last fist up in the air.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's cool. Does it seem weird being on that kind of end of the, like being that side of the line of teacher teaching?
More in like kind of the institution setting, like actually at a college. Like in workshops, I feel like it's more easy to connect with everyone, right?
Right.
But with like in a college, I'm like supposed to be Mr. Segrove and like all these things, right?
Right.
So it's like a weird dynamic,
Yeah.
especially because most of the students, like new students or teachers, even like say like, "Oh, what classes are you taking?" Like I'm a student.
yeah.
Like, where's your supplies, man? It's like, no, I'm actually a teacher. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
So that's a weird thing. But also, I think it also gives me like a little bit of respect as well, just because like I was in their seats not that long ago. So to see like, hey, it is possible to be young and working in this field, you know?
Right.
Right.
So,
For
like
sure.
follow my footsteps and you could do, you know, what I'm
sure.
doing, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that.
Is it weird though, the dynamic of like, because not every kid who goes to art college are there because they're there to for you as the teacher. They're just
For
there
sure.
for the curriculum. So how does that change how you teach compared to like doing a workshop?
yeah, well, of course, like with the workshop, you know, they want to be there, right? Like that's why they're paying money for it.
Exactly.
Luckily, with the classes, it's a small college, so the classes are pretty small as well. So it's not like people are gonna like act out because it's like I got 2 students, like it's either one of you. So like who's gonna get it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not gonna take long. But yeah, most of them are I think kind of any creative school. People are pretty eager to learn. You know, so I haven't had any kind of issues as far as people like being super against like what I'm teaching or just like I'm actually here for engineering. Like why am I taking this
Right.
like still life drawing class, right? Something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's been pretty cool so far.
The academy was big enough though that you did have some of those students though,
Oh, for
because
sure,
they did
yeah.
put you in classes that weren't for your major a lot of times. So they put you in like a, I don't know, were you in illustration or fine art?
Fine art.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Did they make you do any sort of acting classes?
Oh, no.
For animators, they make you take some acting classes, like I guess like so you know what gestures feel like before you draw them. I
That's
think
a broad connection. But
Yeah,
I can kind
exactly.
of see it.
But I mean, it's for liberal arts courses, so they can give a
sure.
degree out. That's the real reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
Get
just
all the
curious.
credits you can. Yeah.
I'm curious if you had to take any like weird ass classes outside of your major.
Just for like the general stuff, right? Like how you have to have like was it 2 semesters of math or something? Like I took
Right,
astronomy.
yeah.
It was like
Oh,
no
really?
math in it. So I was like, perfect. This is like right up my alley.
Yeah.
I'm still like counting my fingers when I like do addition. You know?
Well, I'll never stop that.
Exactly. Yeah. Use my toes too.
Yeah.
Do you find, like in your work, do you find like a different emotion when it, like personally, when it comes to like the different, like like drawing a figure versus painting it? Because I kind of thought it seemed like there was more, almost like confidence, lack of word, but in your paintings, which I don't know if that's true, but like there seems like there's more of like maybe not confidence, but like
More like at ease of letting things be.
yeah, of like,
Well, like,
being
yeah.
in the experimental, like being okay with fucking up or something.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
that. You know what I mean?
And I do that all the time. You know, I think with graphite, it tends to be like also the energy I want for it. Like graphite is more about embracing like stillness, for
Right.
sure. You know, like more quiet, just because like the lack of color, all those things, it's not as loud as painting.
Right.
So with painting, it just always goes back to embracing the medium strength, especially because I work in acrylic, which is very kind of like short time right on drawing, right? Like I gotta put this mark and I gotta make sure if I want to blend it, I had to put another one really down quick and
Right.
like things like that. That's also why I use oil pastel with a lot of my acrylics, just because I could layer in like
really?
more soft
Huh.
edges. Yeah.
That's cool.
But yeah, it just depends on the medium, kind of embracing its strengths, seeing the direction I want to go with it.
Is there like a personal attachment to like, because it seems like since you're so strong in graphite, is there like a preciousness to that? Is there like something where you feel like you don't want to mess it up, or is that just based off of the medium?
Well, I mess it up in a different way, like where I'll really invest time in it and then maybe I'll erase a whole section, or I'll
Right.
smear it, or I'll rip it, or I'll do things like that. So there is that release, but I think with graphite, because you could really invest in the layering more so than with acrylic, just for me. I'm still
Right.
trying to figure out how to like really layer with acrylic. But because I can do that with graphite, it's more of a bigger contrast when I do smear it, or when I do like that preciousness is taken away a little bit, right?
Right. Yeah, I see that. That's cool. but it's not based off of like an emotional like fear or anything like that.
No, not really. I mean, like I'll spend hours on a piece and then like rip it up. So there's like no fear involved really.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does anyone give you shit for that?
I mean, when I was starting out, like when I was doing like just early gallery shows, I was like, how am I supposed to sell this? You just ruined it, man. Like, why would I put a price tag on that? But yeah, it was interesting. Like that's why I'm pretty grateful for social media and like why it's so useful for artists is that it kind of gave me some validation to kind of push with the galleries, right? It was like, well, you know, you might not like it, but I got like this many followers,
right.
You know, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Right.
kind of a
That's
big
good.
deal.
Exactly. So, yeah. So it is like a big tool to kind of get your foot in the door as a young artist. Because I think you mentioned it, how I was working with that kind of student collective. Like right when I graduated, I didn't have an Instagram following because I didn't have Instagram, right? So I was like, how do I even...
It would be weird if you did.
Exactly, right? Yeah, like
Somebody started
Twilight
for
Zone
you.
stuff, dimensions. No, so I was like trying to figure out like how am I supposed to get into galleries, and like it's like one of those things where it's like trying to get in any workforce. Like we need 2 years experience. Well, I just graduated. How am I going to get 2 years experience if someone's giving me time to do it? So I would like hit up other people who were recently alumni with me or still like just about to graduate to get like, hey, you know, I want to set up some shows, kind of do it yourself, make your own opportunity type of thing. And it just gave me a lot of insight as far as like how to prepare for shows, like the logistics behind like what the galleries are thinking about too.
Right.
So it was really insightful. And also just like the stress of working with other artists, like how flaky we could be, you know? So,
For sure. I've learned that through this podcast. I'm like,
yeah.
God damn, people are like, I got to cancel. Like, but it's tomorrow.
Right, yeah. Always give them like a month extra.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
the deadline.
Yeah, that's interesting. So do you empathize a lot with galleries? Because there is that whole like, conversation artists for sure have between each other with like 50 fucking %. And,
For
like,
sure, yeah. And then price of materials and then taxes and then like all these things.
cost of living.
You got
and,
an agent or like
Yeah.
10%.
so do you kind of like see that? Do you understand their point of view? And
For sure. I mean, especially in San Francisco with the rent being so high, it's like, you guys have to make rent money, you know?
yeah,
And like I understand why they do theme shows or they do these things, you know, kind of
Right.
like cast a broad net, right?
right.
So I try to help out with prints or whatever I can. So I understand for sure, but at the same time, it's like you're also looking for like that kind of mature gallery who can show your work purely just because you do cool things or
For sure.
you take chances, right?
Yeah.
That's also something like that's always like the goal for a gallery as well, or like for an artist to find a gallery like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I recently went down like the random like experiment of thinking about people buying artwork and why the fuck they do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, I need to stop doing this because it is that like they are selling something that is so. I don't know. I was like, I don't even like. I love art, but I don't understand why anyone that doesn't do art loves art.
For sure.
I can't even
Yeah.
comprehend it. It's like a weird thing. Like I don't know why you guys would buy this. I understand why I do.
Yeah.
But it's weird.
For sure, yeah. I think that too in a lot of ways. Like I always come under the impression like it kind of like takes one to know one. So like
Right.
if you're not doing it, like why would you?
Right.
You know, so it's interesting, but it's amazing also how many people who are like don't do art at all who just like are so passionate about it.
Right.
It's like, oh my god, my whole like living room's covered with art. And
Right.
I just love staring at art or like looking at landscapes or looking
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, and thank God for them, right?
Sure. I mean, the way I talk myself out is like, well, I like music and I'm not musically inclined.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
similar.
that's a good
Mhm.
point.
But I'll go down the weird rabbit hole. Like, God, why do they like it? I don't know. It's weird because we're in, I guess, that the creative, like we do that, but I don't know. Whatever.
Have you guys found at all that the people who collect your work either have like dabbled with art at all or in some way have familiarized themselves with like the act of making art?
For
in some
sure.
way? Yeah.
I've been really lucky, and it's been like huge compliments as far as like other artists who buy my work, right? That's like a huge compliment, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
So I know how hard it is for artists to make money. So for you to take that money and like give it back to me.
For sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you. Yeah. But also, I think I always find like they're always like somewhat in a creative field.
Yeah.
Like maybe they're in fashion, or maybe they're on the gallery end, like production or things like
For
that.
sure.
Right. So they're always like somewhat creative thinkers as well, I find.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. How do I have like these like weird notes in my like art ideas or whatever, and one of them was like, how do you convince like people that like I think it were like IT people to like or like Silicon Valley people to like be super interested in art,
Right. Yeah.
as like the actual people that work in the industry, not like the companies. Because like Google is like, oh, we support the arts or whatever, and they'll do like things like that. But if you think about the people they employ, it's like, I don't think that they're necessarily like in it.
And I find them to be so logical too, in that like when you even think about like, oh yeah, you should go to art show, like I could get prints online. Like why would I? I can type in a code and I get like 30 pieces of it for that artist. So like things like that, they don't understand kind of like just that world of it, I guess. But yeah, I think just how do I convey value within art, right? Like how do I increase my price points and things like that? It's like I spent so much time in school to figure out how to make 3-dimensional objects on 2-dimensional surfaces. I should figure out how to create the illusion of value from a 1-dimensional piece of artwork, right?
For sure.
Like things like that,
Exactly.
So it's interesting because especially for us who are like trying to do this, long term, right? This is a career; it's not a job.
Or a hobby.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not a hobby. It's something we devote our lives to. Like I always say, it's like it's not a career; it's a lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to like really be
How
in for
dare
it.
you say that?
Right? Damn, slammed everyone.
Me and MJ, we
When people ask you how long it takes you to do a piece, do you say my entire life?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it takes 10 years to be overnight success. I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. That too. Just throw every art cliche at them.
yeah, you get them out early,
Exactly. Yeah.
and they know you mean business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I totally, yeah. It the older I get, I mean, it sucks too because when I was younger, I would watch interviews or whatever with artists that I respected. They would always say like, "Oh yeah, it took me a long time to kind of like realize how important the business aspect of it was."
For sure. Yeah.
And now I'm like, yeah, now I'm like, fuck, how come it's taking me so long to understand the business? Like, I understand some business, but there is like this different thing that's like, for like the last couple of years where I'm like, oh, there's a lot of business that's a lot trickier than I've realized. It was always like, how, like, sell a painting, get money. So like, how do I sell?
Just right to the point, right?
Yeah. But is that whole like, how do I make each painting worth more money? Like, that's the real tricky thing, is like, how do I convince everyone that the painting I made yesterday and the painting I made today is now worth more?
For sure.
And then continually doing that. That's the real tricky part, I think.
Yeah. And also I find like a lot of artists are kind of like, at least the artists I've met have all been very like naturally humble people. So it's also like, how do I put that kind of, not arrogance, but like confidence in my head, like, no, this should be like have extra zeros on it, right? Like,
you've never met Monty Guy then.
Right.
And I mean, even to bring up Monty, he is like the most confident person I've ever met.
Yeah.
And he sells a shitload of art. I'm like, I don't know. Like, he is one of the few people that I actually know that is a full-time artist in the city, and just off of his art. That's his one job. And there's few and far between that actually, that's all he does is art. And I'm like, I don't know, man, like, your confidence seems to be a big factor in that.
For sure. I mean, I think
he's also so much of a go-getter in that way too.
Oh yeah, like anyone who's does art for a living, you know how you have to hustle constantly. That's all it is. Every time looking for shows, commissions,
for sure,
potential contacts.
Right.
So yeah, so I think that does play a big part of it. I mean, I think even for me, I was like a huge introvert in college. Like I was almost like, people thought I was mute. Like
true introvert.
Exactly. Yeah, like people like would do sign language at me. Like that's kind of like how I was, you know.
You and Sergio, you guys cut from the same cloth.
Exactly, yeah, man.
True religion.
Fellow hermits, dude. Yeah. But then I knew, like, I can't let my shyness or quietness get in the way of what I need to do as far as, like, the business side, right?
Right.
So that's why I like doing workshops, going out to gallery shows, doing things that I know are vital to the process of being a living artist, right? Or as a career. So yeah, it's like it helps you to definitely be out there and like more of a go-getter for sure.
For the most part, I've heard that like when I was younger, I was a lot more shy than I am now, and it's like a reoccurring like thing I hear about artists. Go, when I was young, I was deathly shy. So I guess my question is: in art school, are the hallways just silent?
It's pretty quiet. Yeah, it's pretty quiet.
A lot of times, yeah.
You'll have the occasional, the opposite end of the spectrum, the loud free spirit, right?
Right.
Which is very rare.
Is his art? Is his art shitty?
Yeah, usually, right? It's usually just a lot of primary colors.
He's the triangle guy.
The triangle.
Hey, circles are coming back, man.
Yeah. You just gave him a cheat when you said earlier how the square looks more structural next to the circle. He's gonna repeat that shit.
That's a free one for you guys.
So many times. It's like I used to paint squares, but they're too structural.
God, how do I break this space up, man? There's only something that counteracts this shape.
Hell yeah! A circle in a square panel is like his.
Hold up! Now you're just getting crazy, man. Now you're just, watch what you say. Dude.
I'm a circle just trapped in the square, man.
Aren't we all?
Fuck, that was bad. Oh God.
You'll be getting some emails from.
So do you have any? Do you have any thoughts of playing around with different mediums?
Yeah, man, I love all mediums. Like, if you look at my work, I'm like constantly trying to throw whatever I can find into it.
For sure.
But at the same time, it's like I gotta like just stick to one, or just stick to a couple and just really refine it.
Yeah.
Because it is, especially with just being an artist and like meeting other artists, like they show you like this new thing, like, oh, you should try this out. I was like, oh shit, I should try this out, But then like, I am doing a series over here, but this is so interesting. Like,
I know it's the worst.
Yeah.
I've had like encaustics in my head for I don't know how many years. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. Yeah. Still nothing. They're such a cool medium.
For sure. Like wax, resin, like all these things I want to try out. It's like.
Yeah, I just heard about this medium called Ceracolor that Natural Pigments makes, and it's a water-soluble wax medium. Oh, wow. I'm like, I want to try that out.
It sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't...
Water-soluble wax medium?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's like they're just throwing any kind of terms they can just to sell it.
That is hilarious. Glow in the dark too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Also, there's some oil in it, but how does that work with water?
Yeah, how do you get wax
to dissolve in water? I have no idea.
That's make believe.
Yeah, exactly.
They're lying to us.
Yeah. It's got to be boiling water, right? Read the fine print, man. That's what you got to do.
Yeah,
that'd be hilarious. Fuck. Yeah, I don't know. So the whole like subject matter being kind of a lot of time it does seem like what it reminds me of is I go to thrift stores a lot, and there's always like a pile of like old pictures.
Yeah,
and I always like flip through them because I just think it's fucking cool. It's like I'm just getting this weird like 1 second story of like these people's lives.
For sure.
And that's kind of what your stuff reminds me of. Sometimes,
for sure. Like definitely, I think some of my oil paintings were like definitely
sure.
Drawn from like found photos, like vintage photos. Which is something else I'm really interested in as far as like mundanity, like what makes painting interesting. Is it the subject matter, or is it how we express it, right? And I think we talked about that a little bit earlier too. Like as far as sometimes when I work in fashion illustration, where they assign me a model, sometimes I get that feeling of is my painting beautiful because the model is beautiful or because I'm making like a beautiful artwork, right?
You might, did he say that on this or before?
Oh, no, before. I'm sorry, yeah. Before the podcast
I was like, I don't know if Sergio heard that.
No,
we've already talked about the real good stuff.
Yeah, so much shit talking.
Right.
Just kidding.
But yeah, so yeah, that's like a big part of it as well. There's a quote by, who was it? Oscar Wilde, who said like, any portrait painted with emotion is a self-portrait, right? So a lot of times I feel like with these people I paint, like even if they're strangers, a lot of time I'm kind of projecting my own emotions onto them. Like I'm kind of just doing something where they're the vehicle for my self-portrait type of way. Yeah.
Is there like a reason why you like deconstruct some of it?
As far as like the portraits, or you mean like just
even the paintings? There seems like there's a lot of stuff you like leave out.
Oh, for sure.
Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to even your idea of like just like a snapshot, right? Or even like a faint memory, like a hazy memory. Like you could just pick out certain things that might have been minuscule at the time, but for some reason, like, why do I keep remembering that thing like this? So there must be some importance that I kind of miss on just a surface level. You know?
That's awesome. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like even like taste and like smells.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, like those hints of like this thing is childhood.
Right. Exactly.
But it's odd. Yeah. That's awesome. I like that a lot. It totally. It's one of those things. Once you explain it, it's like, oh yeah, it reads that way. I just didn't pick up on that.
For sure. Yeah. Like even with my portraits of my fiance, a lot of times I would stop and kind of just do it from memory at a certain point, right? Like I just don't forget her little details that make her her, right? Things like that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you get choked up. I'm just my throat's just dry. Don't get.
So like, say there is like a piece that you've done where it's like a family at a dinner table, right?
Yeah.
That piece, is that the reason you chose that subject matter? Is that kind of adding like you reminiscing about your experiences and your family around a dinner table? Or
well, I like to do a lot of kind of pieces around like kind of food or eating, like a setting like that, just because it's such a dynamic composition and just an interesting environment, because it kind of goes with that idea of like nurturing, right? Like sustenance and like how we feed ourselves in a kind of social environment. How I kind of see art in a lot of ways, right? Kind of like the whole cliche food for the soul. But like, you know, it does feed us in a way, and a lot of times we go to openings and stuff, so it's like a social thing as well, you know? So I kind of like to play with that dynamic of just echoing what I feel like art is.
That's interesting. I totally thought you were like trying to force the viewer to reminisce of childhood or something like that.
There's definitely that comes into play too, right? Because we all have memories of, you know, that as well.
Yeah.
So it definitely is connected to that, but I think also just kind of going along with the ideas of just art as nourishment, as food as nourishment in a social setting type of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. I totally see when you say something good like that, then I have to think about it, and I totally draw a blank on what else.
It's not all bullshit, guys. I put some thought in this. It's not just a quick sketch, dude. You said it's food for the soul, the cliche saying. One of this has nothing to do with anything, but the little mini thought I had was like, it's hilarious when you meet someone who hasn't heard a cliche saying. Yeah.
It's like mind blowing to them. It's like, someone might have heard that and been like, whoa, food for soul.
Right?
Damn.
You're telling me hard work does pay off? Like things like that. Like, yeah, dude. No, for sure. Yeah, but I mean, I think like, even though like we always try to avoid cliches, right? They come up often because there's usually some truth to them, right?
For sure.
Like they wouldn't be coming up all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's like whenever it's asked me like, you know, how'd you get so good? Or like, what's the secret? Like, you gotta have some sort of trick to do. It's like, no, man, it's just do a drawing for 5 years now, and like just do it every day, and like you'll get to where I am, you know?
Yeah, so, I totally agree with that. Yeah, like the hard work and like obsession of it is
for sure.
Pretty much, I think like the two major keys, just like work hard and be obsessed. Because if you're not obsessed, then you're just going to quit, probably.
Exactly. And it's like, I know like a lot of kind of young students who hit me up and they're asking like, oh, could you critique my piece or this or that? And they'll show me like some kind of like preliminary sketches or things like that. And I'm like, all right, cool, man. Like, how many of these do you do usually? And it's like, oh, I did these 2 throughout the week. Like these 2 sketches, man, like you should be doing, it should be like 20 minutes, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So things like you gotta like really work hard, and like I know saying work hard is like such an abstract concept, but like what I mean by that is like when I was at school, like that was my second home. Like if I wasn't there, I was deathly sick. You know what I'm saying? like I was there every day
Or
from
in the
morning
shadows.
exactly, yeah, lurking in the storage closet, like stealing people's pieces. No, so yeah, it's like you have to really understand. It's trial and error. It's just dedication. It's what kind of being good at any craft or job really is, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like you might not like end up being, like the big artist of the time or whatever, but a lot of the time that's based off of, a group of people who seem to be able to choose who's the genius of the time or whatever.
For sure.
But you do have the control to work hard and work.
Yeah.
You could even go like, I know I can work harder than the average artist or something. Or like, I know I can outwork these people.
Definitely.
And what's the worst that's going to happen from that? There's no like, oh, you work too hard. We don't like, there's no like, oh, you should have never done. There's no like negative in my mind other than like burnt out and lack of sleep. But
Exactly. Yeah.
then catch up on some sleep and you'll.
And it's like usually you get burnt out because you're no longer making things that excite you, right? Like usually, like I'll get burnt out on like a commission just because I was like, this is purely for money, and it's like I'm not passionate about it at all, and so things like that happen.
Not really. He loves all the commission.
No, I love everything. Send it all my way.
Great ideas. They're great. Super cool. Love painting your kids.
But yeah, so like that definitely is a big part of it. There's another point I wanted to bring up, but I'm just blanking out right now. Too much wine.
Oh, did we tell you that was wine?
It's a
memory
moonshine.
loss, Gerard.
Oh, nice. Well, hypnol, right?
Is that roofie? Is that what that is?
So,
but yeah, the whole idea of like working hard is like such like a simple concept that is just it's like the fact about everything.
Exactly.
It's
like
it's
there's no
like,
secret.
You always hear it with like people that are like, there's no weight loss tricks. It's just eat less and work out.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like there's no tricks to art. You just are constantly doing it and just working hard. I mean, the hustle of like the business aspect is also working hard, but it's that's a whole nother
beast for sure. Yeah.
But if you want to get better, it's just work hard at it. What the fuck? Like, there's no special pencil. There's no special paintbrush.
Yeah.
I mean, there's better paintbrushes and better pencils. But at the end of the day, like
sponsorship. No.
No,
for sure though. But it is like knowledge versus just like your supplies, right? Like a certain time, like it's mostly knowledge, Yeah.
And supplies, if you really want to know, you don't have to ask your favorite artist on Instagram, although you can. You just go to your local art store and go like, I like pencils. Tell me everything about
They're
pencils.
Usually more knowledgeable too.
Exactly.
That's who I go to.
I hate to do that.
I've been using the same pencil for like 10 years now.
For sure. I go to the art store and I will like off like I kind of have this weird idea to do this thing, and I'll go and I'm like, I want to do this, and then the art people go like, you might be able to use this, and I'm like, let's see it, and they'll show me, and I'm like, that looks cool. I'm like, but I kind of want this, and they'll go like, oh. And they'll ask each other, and I'm like, thank you for all this free knowledge, which I would have never been able to get on Instagram. So, like, don't take my words for it. Read a book. That's Green Rainbow. Shout out. But,
the more you know. Except there you go. Boom. Perfect.
I nailed it.
End the podcast there. I can't get any better from that.
Pencil drop. That's got to be, someone's got to do that as like a as a stupid Instagram video.
Right, for sure.
It's like
Plague, get on it.
a pencil drop, walk out the class. But yeah, fuck, what were we talking about? Yeah, that
Just hard work. It comes up with another cliche at this point now, but the whole 10,000 hours thing.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Especially with the realism, it's just time plus accuracy, right? Like the more accurate you are, the less time you do.
Right.
The more less accurate you are, the more time you need to invest, right?
For sure.
So it's just,
Yeah, and but here's a question, because your work, it does have the abstract and the
traditional
yeah,
kind of, yeah.
So what are your thoughts on abstract in general?
I love it.
How dare you?
I know. It's one of those things, like, I even love the pieces like people roll their eyes at.
Let's talk about Pollock for a second.
Right?
I was like, my eyes went.
Yeah, like I guess like the biggest example would probably be Twombly.
Oh,
He's
I like
definitely
Twombly, though.
right. Yeah, but like a lot of people would look at that and be like, "Psh, what is this? Like my kid
Yeah.
does this type of thing, right?"
Right.
And if you met like 18, 17-year-old me, I would say the same thing, right? But,
Right. Yeah, same here.
sometimes it takes you to actually try out the process and kind
Right.
of get in their head a little bit to really understand like what they're trying to achieve, right? That's why it kind of goes. Certain styles are like it takes one to know one type of thing, right? As well as
Isn't that like an old school diss?
right,
Yeah. I know you are,
I know,
but
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. You idiot! I just want to know one.
casual dude, like yeah, but it is like to an extent, right? Like it's almost I kind of make the comparison to like sports, right? It's like if I usually people who don't like abstract is because they're judging it from the rules of realism or like things that they think in their head are supposed to be precious, right?
Right.
So it's like if I were to judge golf on UFC rules, right? It's just like, yeah, they're both sports, but they're totally different games, right?
Yeah,
So
like, I
it's not
didn't
fair
even
to
knock
judge.
that guy out.
Right, exactly. Why isn't he using the club for self-defense right now, dude? Like, I can put him in an armbar. Like, so like it's the same thing, right? Like you can't judge abstract purely on like, oh, there's no form, it doesn't look like anything I know in the representational world.
Right.
It's just a different line of thinking and just a different kind of visual experience that they want for the viewer. So I'm like really big on expressionism, minimalism, all those things, as well as realism. I love highly rendered pieces. I love very kind of quickly rendered pieces. It's just it just goes back to my issue of like I just love too many things, and that's why I get indecisive sometimes.
Yeah.
Heart's too big.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I like some abstract for sure, but there is like for instance, like me, like stuff you do, the abstract, like the interaction between the two, I think is like my favorite stuff, just because I think you're like utilizing the spectrum of tools that are given to us as artists.
For sure, and definitely try to like just bridge that gap,
Right.
just find a connection between
For
the two.
sure. The issue I have is always going to be like Jackson Pollock or that kind of thing. Just because, I mean, even the older I get, like I'm still not like it. For me, that stuff is always going to be like, I don't know. Like I don't see the value in it. I mean, I see the value in it for art as a movement,
or like anything's possible type of thing, and like
exactly.
open minds.
But I don't see the value in it as a individual piece being judged on its own merit.
Like yes, it opened my mind to like I guess you can do paint trips, but does that value it at millions of dollars? Right.
Exactly.
Does it equal that? I mean, it's hard for me to say that just because with me, like Twombly was that guy for me, right? But then like something clicked to me. It was like, whoa, like his compositions, like all these things just all it just made sense, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's hard for me to like just like trash things that I don't kind of understand or like appreciate.
That's no fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, God, boring. Snooze fest. No, but at the same time, it's like there are pieces where it's like you look at it, it's like, well, who's the genius, the artist or the art dealer?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's my big issue for like a lot of the stuff I don't like is the hype train, being the star of the show.
For sure, yeah.
I understand it serves a purpose, but like if it's like the main thing is that we're convinced that this is good, then I'm like, my instinct is always push back on that. It's always like, why? Like you can't convince me you have to convince me that it's good. Right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to just accept that I don't understand it. So it's not, so
Yeah, no,
it's my fault.
I'm a big believer in skepticism for sure. Especially where it's like in a visual medium, right? Like if you're not getting your point across visually, then what are you doing, right?
Sure.
It's like if I need to read an essay to appreciate it, you kind of miss the point of visual medium, right?
Exactly.
So things like that definitely annoy me as well. It's like you shouldn't. I mean, there's also like different levels, right? Like I understand also like I can't walk into like a string theory class and be like, I don't understand it. There's no value in it, you know? So,
Yeah, but they would be able to explain it to you. Like I feel like if you went, I don't understand string theory, they'd be like, all right, let's try to explain it to you, and then like a common, like like a layman's term, and then maybe develop like the knowledge. But
well, I mean, they can't do that with also like some of those serious or like pretending to be serious pieces, or I'm sure they have a whole team of people who could tell you like, oh, it was because of this, and like
But see,
he made this when he was dodging bullets or wherever he lived or whatever, while protesting women's rights or like things like that. Like just like all these things at the same time.
I love when people are like dodging bullets. It's like
exactly.
I think you're not that fast, bro.
Matrix stuff, man. That's why it's valued. So,
but that's another good question. Is like the background of the how much of like that's another question I'm always asking is like, for instance, if someone's lived a hard life, does that make the artwork more valuable?
Right, exactly.
Like, is that a valid point to saying this art is worth more because of that? Like,
right, and like their perspective on things. And
I mean, if it's their perspective and it's done, like I'm like, fuck, just because of their experience, they made a great. Their perspective is great, but if it's like just because they lived a hard life, their art gets to be valuable. I'm always like, well, I don't know if that's because then we just go, who's lived the hardest life,
right? And it's just a competition of that, right?
It's like your art doesn't need to be good; you just need to have the shittiest like the shittiest luck,
for sure. Well, it also goes back to even like kind of like ugliness versus beauty, right?
Right.
Like it depends on the person's outlook. Trying to burp. So
you were deep thinking. Deep into
very
thought.
deep. Let me figure out how I'm gonna word this. So like there's like valid points on both, right? Like why to appreciate beauty, why to appreciate ugliness, right? Like not everything is flower petals and rainbows and butterflies. Like some things are like gritty and real and like torturous, right?
Right.
So there's a place for everything, I feel like, but at the same time it's like how far do we push that? And just because you push it to an extreme that's no one's ever done before, does that make it, valuable at, a certain level, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. P-Jesus or something like that.
Exactly, right. Yeah. It's like at what point when it's just all shock, where you're just trying to top the shock and it's not really genuine anymore.
Yeah. Wait, you guys need to wait for my poop cheese that's coming out.
There
soon.
we go, yeah. Dumas, poop in a can type stuff.
But there is, like, going back to, like, I don't want to beat on a dead Pollock, but but there is that like for instance, like how you were saying earlier, you have to someone has to explain to you what it means, right? But there is like this at least gut feeling, at least for me, where it's like I can see a piece and I feel like there's some, even if I can't comprehend what's behind the piece, I might feel like there is something. I might have to do some research, but I can kind of see that there's something in that. And
for sure, yeah.
And then there's that same gut feeling where I feel like it's kind of gimmicky, right?
Yeah.
And when you see like 30 splash paintings, to me, I go like, well, I don't know, man. It seems like...
Well, there's definitely... It reaches both spectrums, right? There's superficial realism and there's superficial abstraction.
Oh, yeah.
It's just... It goes both ways.
Yeah, it's the whole like compete to be the photograph.
For sure.
Kind of thing. And you're like, well, but when you get there, what are you going to do?
Exactly. Now what?
Yeah.
There's like people who are like 17 who could do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, what's the point after a while? But also like on the opposite end, there's also like very kind of superficial abstract work where it's like very trendy. You know what I'm saying? Like very kind of pastel colors. Oh, I should say I don't use pastel. I mean, shoot. I like pastel. But,
Take that out.
Edit that out. But like very kind of almost like Instagram abstraction.
They're like
right?
Pinterest on a panel or something.
Exactly. Yeah. It's almost like I buy it just because it goes with my couch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I don't know. That's a headache. And
for sure. But hey, I mean, I'm supporting any artist who can make money off of what they
Yeah,
do.
that's true. That's also very true. Can't hate the hustle.
Exactly. Hate the game. No.
Yeah. There's also like the girl who's happens to be very cute who doesn't make great Pinterest art on a panel. Who
For sure.
that always helps. I can't wait till I got my summer body and I'm gonna sell the
I
shit
know,
out of
damn,
some
dude.
shit.
Just wait till I get those
look out,
abs,
bro.
man.
But that's I don't know. I might sound like a bitter asshole right now.
Yeah. 'Cause whenever I think about that too, it's like, well, am I just a hater? Am I just jealous of beauty? Like,
exactly. Like I've heard guys say like, oh, only like cute girls get like shows in art show like in the city or whatever. And I'm like, I mean, I've never heard these people say it, but I know someone that talks like this.
for sure.
And I'm like, your art's not good.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe work on your art before you talk that shit.
Change the man in the mirror, dude. Now look at yourself. Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah.
We're fucking clicheing this
I
bitch.
know, right?
Yeah.
All right, mark that one off. Check this. All right, what's the next one?
You point one finger out, 2 point back at you.
Exactly, right?
It's 3, Sergio.
I made it my own.
Here, let me show you this.
All right. Yeah.
But no one ever talks about the thumb. No one
Right,
ever
there
talks
you go.
about the thumb. It's bullshit.
Is it a finger? I've heard debate about that, right? Yeah.
That's when you know we as humans have it too easy. When we're like, is the thumb even a finger?
Right, yeah.
Like,
First world
did you want
problems.
any more of
dude.
this?
Oh, no, I'm okay. Gotta drive back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Wine pour break.
Yeah.
Getting fancy.
But yeah. There is that. That's the other fear, right? That's kind of why I feel like a lot of reasons why people don't talk shit about certain art that everyone kind of feels a certain way, like the Pinterest art, like, is because it's like that fear of like, I don't want to be an asshole because like
sure.
it's hard to.
You don't want to look bitter and
Yeah. But then at the same time, it's like,
work
but
hard,
it's
man.
true,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, are we allowed to admit that like the science doesn't work out?
For me, it's just like if it comes off as genuine, like you could paint portraits of cats if you want to, if it's just genuine,
Yeah, that's
and like
exactly
you donate
what
to
it is.
the animal shelters and things like that. That's fine. But when it seems like it's purely for just chasing likes or something like that, just there's an uneasy feeling in your stomach, right? That's just natural, and it's not so much with like, oh, they're beautiful, but just like, why are you not just showcasing the work in a way, But then they throw off like, oh, it's about self-acceptance and confidence, and this, that, which is valid. There's a place for that, but at the same time, it's like every photo, like like take a break a little bit,
Yeah, so please, Sergio, stop taking pictures in front of your paintings with your
Please,
like.
no more DMs, dude.
Yeah, seriously, it's getting a little weird.
I get it. You work out, Sergio.
I know, and we know those are butt implants, by the way. It's obvious. Nice. So, what do you have coming up now?
Yeah, I got a show in New Orleans, Muscle Memory. It's with a new gallery, so I'm excited to show there. Just
the gallery's name is Muscle Memory.
Oh no, I'm sorry, that's the name of the show.
Okay.
The gallery is a Retro Gallery.
Okay.
And then I'll have a show in Modern Eden coming up.
Nice.
With Emilio, who's curating. So
Sweet.
it's always cool to see like his perspective and like who he picks. Hell yeah, yeah, exactly. Said that to me. That's my ringtone. And then from there, it's more just focusing now on just kind of finishing up the semester for teaching and things like that. Yeah,
that's awesome, and that's cool. So now that you're kind of like, now that you, gotta word this. I don't know. I can't give up.
No, just string it up, man. I'll put the dots together.
like for like these pieces, because you were telling me earlier, like that you get to be a bit experimental with this show coming up with Emilio.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So like with that, in developing that piece, what goes into that kind of mindset of like, I get to.
It's more just kind of pushing my own boundaries, kind of maybe challenging fears I have as far as like what's presentable within the gallery. like I don't want to talk about too much about like what I'm going to show, just because I constantly change my ideas. That like I don't want to like hype up something that's totally different in the show.
Yeah.
I know that reminds me because on Emilio's show,
Yeah.
we talk about like one specific painting on a show. His painting he was creating at the time we talked about, and it literally became a whole different painting.
Right? Yeah.
It just was like, so it was like funny because like this is the painting's working on, not the painting anymore. Restarted the whole thing. I was like, that's cool.
Wow.
For sure. Yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, just what now? What's the date today? Like as far as today,
We know it,
right? Yeah. 24 or something.
Something like
Yeah.
that sounds about right. We all know that.
Yeah. So, like I'm playing with like kind of more layering of surfaces. Like I want to try like overlapping Duralar. It's kind of like vellum. It's like kind of transparent. So I'm kind of playing around like that idea as far as what I'm doing sketches of right now.
Okay.
But
That
yeah,
sounds
like
cool.
So I'm always looking for kind of something I could really hold on to for like the next series. Like I was trying to like plan for like the next solo or things like that. So,
That's cool. Yeah.
The next solo. How do you enjoy a solo show?
I actually don't really care for them just because of my process, right? Like I'm so like loose with my interest. So it's hard for me to like just dedicate like, all right, you want 25 pieces?
I know.
Yeah,
It is brutal as hell.
for sure.
I think like solo shows in general, for me, I mean, they're cool. Like if you have like for me, they're like cool if you have a real, like clear focus of like this big project that you think you want to like take a shot at making. But other than that, it seems like overwhelming. Like, how do I fill a space with stuff? And
Sure.
I don't know.
I'm definitely more of a group show guy as far as just even just the dialogue between other artists, showing artists you like really admire, and it's like, oh, that's
Right.
cool. I get to mark that off my bucket list like I showed with this person, So things like that's really cool. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure if I have a really clear idea, more solo shows, please.
For sure. Yeah.
Turning them down.
Yeah, exactly. What's your like preferred number of artists to show with? Like, do you like big group shows or just smaller ones? Or
Probably smaller scale, like maybe 12 and under. It's
okay,
usually like a good amount.
Yeah,
I'd say that's
it is nice if you can do like maybe more than one piece.
For sure.
You know, if you can do like 4 or 5 pieces.
That's usually what you can do with that kind of number.
Yeah.
When it's like, we're doing, 50 by 50, like 50
Right.
artists doing like,
Yeah.
50 paintings or whatever. It's like, it's just overstimulating, I think, even for the viewer, right?
Yeah.
Like people go to the shows like,
yeah,
that's
you
always
miss so
a
much
weird
of
one.
it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it happens all the time. I'll meet an artist at one of those shows. And they're like, I'm like, which one did you do? And they're like, oh, I did that one over there. I'm like,
Play that like Where's Waldo game. Like,
Yeah.
okay, look
And then they're like, which one did you do? And I'm like, that one. And they're like, they're usually like, oh, yeah, that was my favorite one. I love that one. That was the best one in the
Yeah,
show. It was hella cool. And I love that piece. You're a genius. Something like that. I'm just
Usually.
recalling what they're saying.
For sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it is that whole thing like, what piece? And you have to like go and point your piece out. And
For sure. And it kind of takes away some like the importance of the artwork too,
Yeah.
right? And for the artist, right? It's like, well, if I'm just 1 of 50, it's like,
Right.
am I really making an impact type of thing?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, unless it's like unless it's not a specific size. If it's not like a 10 by 10, and then you're the artist that did like a 6 foot by 12 foot painting.
Right, yeah. Get all that prime real estate on the wall, right?
Yeah, they're like, which one did you do? You're like the giant one.
Yeah.
That,
Oh, you're the reason why I'm overlapping with other artists. Cool, dude.
that would be fucking awesome. I don't even know how you'd do a 12-foot panel. That would mean you would have to try really hard to make it that big.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
They don't even make plywood that big, so you would have to. If you made a wood panel, you'd have to make it multi-panel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like it better be good because like some of those big ones, like, well, it's big. You got that down.
Like,
Yeah.
listen, it's a fucking circle.
Right, it's 1 dot. Like in the middle.
But you don't get it, man.
Yeah.
I'm the circle
Can't you see it?
in the square.
I'm trying to contrast all this empty space with one area of focus, right? It's called like visual
Yeah.
meditation. It's got to deal with, the
Tell me,
function.
did I lead your eye to the dot?
Yeah. I noticed it. There you go.
Yeah. So I did.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. I don't know. The authenticity, we mentioned it before, but authenticity and like art, it seems like at least for me, to be like an extremely important thing.
It's tricky. It's really tricky, especially when you deal with, art that's supposed to be subjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like value subjective, skill subjective.
Right.
It's like, well, then what measurement do I judge things on?
Yeah.
It's like, then it just becomes personal taste, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you're into just, those dot paintings,
Right.
go for it. It's not my lane,
Yeah. Even like how you were saying earlier, like the Pinterest kind of like there's
an audience for that. Yeah.
And if you see the artist and they really seem like this is, like they're really in love with what they're doing,
Yeah.
it's like, well, then I can't hate you for that.
Yeah, especially, I mean, like if you're posting a lot of yourself and you're very like interactive with your audience too, it's like, I totally get it. Like you're trying to make that personal connection.
For sure.
I can't hate that,
Yeah.
And you just happen to be like a model too. Like, all right, yeah, lucky you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hate that. I'm like, you're good and handsome.
Right.
You fucking asshole.
Spread the wealth, dude. Like,
I know. Yeah. Whatever. I'm just
life,
kidding.
Right? That's life.
I,
That's social media for you.
Yeah. Sorry for being a bitter asshole.
No, it's all good. Let's get it out. It's event, man.
I don't know. We're supposed to pull up a piece, but I forgot to ask you what piece you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and I'm bad with my own titles too, so that'll be fun.
It's time to be critiqued by waiting to dry.
I'm ready.
Boom. So, wait, is there a title on this one?
Yeah, this one's called Outro. It's got to deal with like kind of aging gracefully type of thing. That's why it's like,
outro. Yeah, I like that.
Oh,
yeah, oof.
that's dark.
Exactly. Man.
Hell yeah. So what are your thoughts on titles, first of all? Like,
I'm horrible. I usually do like Untitled number 7,
Oh, really?
23 number. It's just it's just hard to title something without feeling like super cheesy about it. That's like one of my biggest struggles. That's why it's like, just make it vague.
Yeah.
just you've already used enough cliches in this episode. You don't want to
Exactly.
This
Right.
title is called
Right. Yeah. Man in chair. Right.
Yeah.
Just keep it simple.
but that title's fucking cool. I actually really like that outro.
Yeah, me too.
It's like a dark joke, which I'm huge into dark humor. So, so hell yeah.
But yeah, like the reason why I like this piece is just it has a level of maturity. I feel like I've been looking for my artwork because it's interesting, but it's not like beating your head trying to get your approval type of thing.
Right. Yeah, so there's a main older figure.
Yeah.
And then he's got like he's sitting on the couch. It's I don't know. It's pretty sad. Like in general, like the subject matter mixed with the title. It's like fuck. This is
right.
This is
it's haunting, right? A little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty haunting. It's like oddly familiar too, in that like you can easily, at least if you've had any like elder person in your life or something like that pass away, you can easily like instantly like see how this story ends. It plays out a certain way, and you're like, even like the sitting, like my mom, she's a caregiver
for sure.
Like she's done it since I was a little kid, and so she's had a lot of like old people she's taken care of, and they've died. And I've, she every once in a while she'd go like, Josh, come and meet my old lady or my old man. And I'd go and meet him, like, hey sir, it was good, nice to meet you, blah blah. But they always are like in a couch for hours or days.
For sure,
just like, and that's their life. It's like this weird like how the story ends.
It must just become a part of the interior in the little ways, It's like they're just one of the other furniture.
Exactly. And it's weird because if you ever like talk to those people, they have like an extremely interesting life, but it's like they'll spend the rest of their days watching The Price is Right.
Yeah, which is like super depressing. And it's just something I think about, especially as we advance in medical technology, our age is just getting more and more. And it's like, at what point am I just a burden to people?
Sure.
It's like, how do I just get out gracefully? Skydiving.
Skydiving.
No,
that's not called skydiving.
Yeah, that's just called jumping out of a plane. But it's just
it's called sky falling.
Right. Yeah. I think we exactly. Yeah. I think we all kind of it's like things we think about, but we don't want to really bring up. Right.
Yeah. And that really is conveyed the, I don't know. It's fucking, I really like the piece, but I just like your work.
And I think it also kind of ties in with just the idea of like information contrast, right? Like he's almost like literally fading out because like, you know, the body's now just a line, you know,
sure.
face is like kind of like multiple features in it. And like, you know, you can't really figure out who he was, you know?
Right. Yeah. One of the cool things about your work too is like you do see a lot of like your decision making in the piece. Like sometimes it's like I'm not going past this point. Sometimes it's like I'm purposefully
like stopping here. And that's like probably one of the hardest things too with this work, where it's like, how much can I get away with in a way? Because I still want there to be an obvious idea, like, all right, he is putting time into it, he's putting thought, but it's not like, you know, he's not torturing it and like overworking it to a point.
And I think for artists, at least for me, that's like one of the toughest things.
It's so hard.
Is walking away from a piece and being like, I don't want to touch it anymore, even though like I can nitpick it forever.
For sure.
It won't get any better.
Exactly. I think it's also like comes back with humility and just kind of being self-aware of your own technical ability. It's like, this is the best it's going to get. You know, I mean, I'm just dreaming at a certain point where like trying to be better, right? That just comes with creating more pieces, right? So that's why you got to jump to the next one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Fuck, this is a dark piece. And
where'd the idea come from to do this one?
Just naturally just thinking about morbid ideas, you know, as we all do.
Dark shit,
crying myself to sleep. I think it's just, I know a lot of people think like, oh, you paint dark things, you must be a dark person, or like you must be a depressed person. But it's like, it's usually the opposite. It's like, no, this is a release, you know? It's like, I'm fighting my demons. I'm fighting like the fears we all deal with, mortality, aging, relationships fading out, right? Things like that. So things like this help me kind of understand, you know, my place within, you know, this world.
I don't even think of your art as dark though.
Right. Yeah. That's why I think it's a good balance. I think there's like still a beauty to it, right? There's still like I wouldn't say dark as more as just vulnerable, I guess. You know.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think of it as dark either. There's like this isolation sort of feeling to it, but I don't know, just the way that maybe it's because everything is so bright still at the same time.
There's like that contrast, right, of kind of color and subject matter, which I also like.
Yeah. I mean, this piece specifically I find to be very dark. But even if I saw it, maybe I would have connected the darkness. But this is like the thing I always find is like the one, like I love titles, but it's it's pretty much that. Is like the second you tell me the title, it goes like, oh, that just got a lot darker on the, like, you know, the darkness spectrum.
That's why it's like, it's tough with titles. Like, I don't want to beat you over the head with like what it is.
Right.
You know? So.
But yeah, well done with the title.
Thanks.
So is this a reference you just found, or is this?
Yeah. It doesn't even look like the person. Like, maybe you ever like check my reference photos. Well, that's kind of what I like, you know, to avoid copyright. No, like at a certain point, like I think it's important for all artists to kind of put down your reference material and just see like what is the painting telling you to go. Like, you know, like pay attention to the artwork as well. You know, so it's important to me. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I gotta probably put that into practice a little more. For me, because it's like this weird clear. With my art, it's like the figure. It's like I pay attention to the reference so much, and then when the figure's kind of at a certain point, I go like, okay, now I can play around.
For sure.
But I probably should try to play around.
But also, you usually work from a lot of people you kind of know or like friends with, right? So I think that also puts a little pressure on you because you know they're gonna see it and like.
Well, they're not like they're like models, like hired models or something like that.
Yeah, but still, like you have that kind of pressure because they're not really a stranger now, right?
Yeah, no.
As well, like, that's why I kind of like working with just found materials or found images rather online or just like sometimes you go to vintage stores.
To do that.
Yeah.
And it was specifically for that reason of like I don't want to know these people because I don't want to feel like this pressure to capture like the essence of the human or whatever.
Exactly.
I want to like distance so I can only think about my narrative I'm trying to say through this piece or like what I'm trying to like everything I want to detach that, you know.
For sure.
But yeah, there is that tricky thing of like now I want more control over the figure and the postures I want and like to accomplish these ideas without having to rely on an outside source. So now I have to meet these people, and it is that like, now I know you, now I don't know if I want to paint you.
Exactly, yeah, because you have a certain level of respect for that person.
Exactly.
Too. And even with that piece, like I think it was actually, if I remember correctly, it was like on the beach, so he was living the good life, you know. So like I projected that stuff onto him, you know? So.
But fuck, that's awesome. That's dark, but I like it. I mean, yeah, the skin color, like the skin tones on him are pretty dark too.
Like very muted for sure.
Yeah,
in certain areas.
Yeah, and then like the spots that aren't are like very, just like red and intense.
Like right,
and like red is like, it could be a very seductive or like a very violent color too.
Yeah,
right.
So, yeah, no, they almost look like open sores or something in certain spots,
for sure.
Which is like very common with older people. They just don't heal faster, things like that.
Or their skin just gets so like loose and transparent. It's
it's
exactly
seeing your anatomy.
Exactly, and that's the other thing with the skin on him is it feels transparent.
Yeah, which I was like really kind of going for, and that, like how I was going with the Modern Uni show I was talking about earlier, kind of playing with transparency. That's why I kind of like this piece, because I think it's a good starter for that direction to like really push it a little more.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that. How, when working on a solo show, this is just a random question.
Sure.
The first piece you do, how important is that for like the...
Well, for mine, it was pretty big actually. It kind of like sparked the whole idea. I think my sorry, I keep moving away from the mic. Amateur. So for the
you said it.
yeah. I don't want to point fingers, but I'll say names. So like for that oil painting series, it actually all started with just a painting I did of clothes drying on like a hanger.
Yeah, I know that piece.
And like that one like just sparked this whole whirlwind of inspiration. I was like, oh, I could do like 20 more of these pieces. Like I'm really fascinated by this kind of idea, you know. So so for that one, it was important. For my first one, I think it was just, I just had a bunch of work that looked alike that was just piling up. I was like, all right, I guess this could be a solo show. You know? If I'm being like really honest, like that's how it is sometimes. And then I'm just kind of filling into the 25 limit or whatever, you know. But even with those pieces, like they all still fit within the theme of solo show. So it's not like I'm just like, all right, here's a drawing and here's an old painting from school, and like, like they all have to fit still.
Yeah, the reason I ask is just because, at least for me, like the experiences I've had in that kind of arena, it's always like the first piece kind of is this weird thing where it dictates the rest of the show in a weird way. For me, it was like, all right, well, you set the tone. Now I kind of have to like follow that.
Yeah, and it's also interesting, like, to compare the last painting with the first painting, right? It's like see a jump from it.
Yeah, usually the first painting isn't even my favorite or anything I'm that into. It just kind of was like that weird, like, it points me in a direction, and now I'm going that way, and I don't know where it's going to end, but that's why it reminded me, this piece specifically that you're talking about, and how it kind of is a good direction. It kind of reminded me of that whole like first painting in a solo show idea.
Yeah,
like,
that piece would probably be my clothes drying piece, right? It was like that's the one that's like I really feel like a spark from that I could jump into. So I'm excited about it. Hopefully I'll just won't get distracted with
for sure
other interesting artwork. You know?
That's awesome. So do you want to go into your questions, Sergio?
Sure.
It's time for Sergio's Question Corner.
You should go into these questions like DJ Khaled.
Gotta watch
Sergio.
I gotta brush up on my Khaled to get it ready. All right, so I don't know if Josh prepped you on any of these questions, but
prepped you, right?
A little bit,
okay, so do you have a list of top 5 living artists?
God, I was supposed to prepare for that, wasn't I?
I prepped him.
Yeah,
he did not prepare.
I would. I'm gonna try to pick people who maybe aren't on Instagram. Okay. But still, like, kind of big within the field. I know.
Wait, there's people not on Instagram.
He's not on Instagram. Did it really happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm gonna butcher these names too, so sorry. Adrian Guiney.
Oh,
he's a big one. Anne Gale is like hugely influential, especially because she shows at Dolby Chadwick, so it's always really cool to see it in person. classic like Antonio Lopez Garcia, like incredible, right? Like super inspirational in college.
Yeah, I feel like he influenced so many
So
people.
many, yeah. He's really huge for the realism community for sure. Was that 3? Okay, so Matsui Fuyoko. She's a Japanese illustrator, very kind of that like morbid beauty. Like it's like kind of like rotting people in a way, but it's like still very like, whoa, it's just gorgeous imagery, like how you make it, right? And who would be another one? Let's see. Going through my Rolodex in my head.
Your Pokedex.
Right, yeah. I'll just go with someone who passed away, like Nikolai Fetchin. Fetchin's a really good one. Hugely inspirational to me. Like just more the drawing side.
Yeah.
Like
I could see that now.
It's like crazy, just balancing form with like line work. It's just it's so inspiring. Yeah.
Awesome. There's one random question I asked before you asked, but is there one artist that you hate?
One artist that I hate.
Either in your personal life or no, I mean, they don't have to be alive either.
I'm very righteous. No, honestly, I can't. Nothing really comes to mind. Like hate's like a strong word. Like it's like I hate people who murder. I don't hate artists who just do paintings, right? So
you hate what's the murderer that
who murdered?
Who's John Wayne Gacy? Yeah.
So you hate John?
No, I don't like Charles Bronson, man. Like, I don't like all that hostage stuff he's been doing in jail in England. Don't care for it. But yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah, sorry. Okay. I'm drawing a blank on that one. Yeah.
It's okay.
Is there something that maybe you don't hate the artist in general, but like, for example, John Wentz, he brought up something that an artist did that he didn't like. And he brought up David Hockney's Secret Knowledge, that book that he wrote. I don't know if there's anything like that.
Oh, well, maybe like the stunt I didn't care for was probably the Banksy one. The frame.
Right on.
It just felt so superficial. Like, no, it just perfectly stops within the frame, and it's still sellable. So cool, dude. Nice PR stunt, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, I guess that would be something like I just roll my eyes at, like, all right, you know.
Yeah. We should do a piece of where it's eyes rolling, and then you can call it watching Banksy shred his piece.
Right.
That'll be the title.
Just clip it together, right? Just a bunch of people rolling around.
It'll be an installation. It'll be like a video.
Video installation.
Video installation.
I think like with that piece, there's like a lot of people who weren't artists were like hyping it up, but people who were artists like know a little bit of the game. It's like, all right, dude. Like,
exactly.
Exactly. So I feel who did the basketballs in water? Was it Coons?
No, it was. I know who you're talking about.
Did
he do the shark one too?
Yeah, it was Damien Hirst.
Damien Hirst, yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of the things that infuriates me the most. Just the basketball in waters.
But let me be a bleeding heart real quick and devil's advocate. Like I feel like at that,
I don't even know what that was about.
Like at that like point in your career, it's like, what do you do? Like you just always have to like top yourself. It's like I guess I gotta make something else ridiculous. I don't know. Like so I feel like just from his point, I get the struggle of being rich and just
retire.
I don't like to defend someone who's like completely rich, but like if I was in his shoes, I'd be like, all right, what else am I gonna make now?
Retire and go live on an island or something.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Open up like an art school.
No one needs your basketballs in water.
Right? Yeah.
Oh shit.
What was it? Someone was saying that the like in the thing it says like whoever bought it or something. It said like, oh, when I think the basketball started deflating, and then he was like, "Oh, just go and buy another basketball and put it in there."
I know. It's a Spalding, dude.
I would love to see the face of the person that owned it.
Right.
Just like when he said that, and just be like, just like the click of like, "Oh, I just spent a shitload of money on this."
Right. Yeah.
Didn't realize.
I just pick up at a sports store for like $10.
It was a fish tank and basketballs.
I wonder if you get that self-deluded that you're like, oh, now I'm a part of the art. I'm the artist myself.
Oh, God, it's organic. It's such a dialogue.
My thought is that it's like, the magic eyes, when you see the ship.
Yep.
He saw the ship at that moment.
Right, for sure.
He was like, oh, this isn't a genius thing. This is basketballs and fish tank.
Well played.
And then the last question is, what would you do with David Cho money?
Ooh, I would probably buy like an abandoned warehouse and just turn it into like an art center type of thing, where it's just like,
Right on.
if you need a workshop, I like to host you. You need a show, I can host you. Like things like that, I guess.
I know. I had to drive to San Rafael this morning, and I drove past the, what's those slippers called again? Those like
Crocs?
no, like the sandals that like
Birkenstock?
Birkenstocks. They have like an old Birkenstock.
Right.
Like fabrication place, and it's for sale right now.
Oh, crazy!
And I drove by it, and it's such an interesting building as well. I was
Yeah.
Is it the one that has those
like
crazy,
the sharp, rigid, it's like a super mid-century modern design.
Sure.
Super some guy was just like, go ahead and make this weird shit, and he's just like, fuck yeah.
It's also something I think about, like maybe if I get like a lucky auction, it's like, oh, I got this factory for $15, like something like that,
But I was like, oh, because it's on 80 acres too. You're like, oh man, I would love to buy that and just go wild.
Exactly.
Right.
Just, if you need like a space to do a project, hit me up.
Yeah,
things like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's so interesting too. It'd be like, I don't know, it would be just great to kind of have that like weird building structure to create in. I could just imagine how fucking weird it is on the inside too, but
Yeah, for sure.
that's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah,
Hopefully you will make that David Cho money so I can
I know for sure, man. Any other Facebooks on the come up? Like I gotta invest in, dude.
seriously. Goddamn Facebook won't let it happen.
I know, damn.
Don't be a bully, Facebook.
I know, Big Brother over here is watching us.
Right.
Is that it? Is that that's the main idea?
Yeah, that's me in a nutshell, I guess.
So what do you do with the rest of your 199,000?
Jeez, I don't know. Stock up on instant ramen forever now. Still eating like I make what I make now.
Probably just buy the company.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Make my own flavors, Like that.
That's a better question. It's a better question than David Cho money. What's your instant ramen personal?
Yeah, what's your instant ramen flavor?
It's called hard boiled egg or soft boiled egg and siracha.
Yeah, for sure. It's Flaming Hot Cheetos.
Right.
And sesame oil.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that goes back to they used to put sesame oil in one of the ramens back in the day,
Oh, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
and they don't do it anymore. And I think about it now, I'm like, fuck, that was such a cool move.
Right, yeah.
I wish they did that still.
Too many like salmonella complaints or what? I don't know. What goes into that?
That's your actual flavor, salmonella.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
It was labeled as chicken, though.
Right, yeah.
yeah, uncooked chicken.
Yeah. Chicken tartare, right?
Awesome. Are we good on time?
Not quite.
All right, stall.
No, something I wanted to ask you about, though, was
Hell yeah.
how the Low Collective, how that came about. Was that something that started like in school with you and Emilio and just grew it? Or how
No, actually, that's how I met Emilio.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, because when he was in school, he was doing his graduate program, and I was doing the undergrad, which was like different buildings, so we never crossed paths. But actually, I recognize some of his pieces from the spring shows that we used to have. Right? Yeah. So
they don't have it anymore?
I mean, I should say, yeah. I should say past tense.
Holy shit, they're really cutting back
Yeah.
on
No kidding.
budgets there.
But yeah,
The spring doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just
Global warming, ever heard of it, Sergio?
winter rushing into summer. That's all.
Wake up. Wake up.
So yeah, so I was familiar with his work already. But it was Justin Hopkins, who now does No Wave too, which is like his gallery in LA. Well, I should say almost like a talent project scouting thing, because now he does like everything, like film and fashion stuff, and like so it's really cool. But yeah, he hit me up and was like, hey, I've been following you for a while, and or we've been following each other for a while. What do you think about like maybe like creating a friendship or like networking a little more? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm down. Meet other artists, because I was like, I think that was like almost not even a year yet on Instagram, so I was like really kind of into like, yeah, let's hang out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then he introduced me to
And now
Emilio.
you're like a snob. And now you're like, I've been on this thing for like 5 years now.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, like, and then it just kept growing, and we were like, you know, really good friends, best friends now, you know. And I fly out to LA all the time. He helps me with like workshops, and you know, so it's really cool.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Nice. And so it's you, Emilio, and Justin?
Yeah, Justin.
And then that's called
Low Collective.
Low Collective.
And then No Wave is with Justin and Yoshino with Artist Decoded.
Yeah.
So I don't want to like rival them.
No.
No.
I
So,
got no hatred towards any other art podcast
for sure.
other than.
Well, we got some we've ranted on, but that's okay.
But no, I have no hate. I just
I know. I just
For sure, yeah.
differing opinions.
But yeah, again, like both people I great friendships with, like really cool people. You know, it's always nice, like to see people who are like talented, but are also like very easygoing and like nice and you know just helpful, right? So
yeah, that's great. Other than the other ones that aren't, and their names are
right. Yeah, let me list them
just kidding. Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting because you had like the college collective of artists, and now you're did you enjoy that kind of like environment of like having like a community, or I don't know what they call that?
For sure. No, definitely. I think that's kind of why I even pursued like academic schools, right? Like like the whole college thing, just because I wanted to be in an environment where I was like surrounded by other creatives. Even though I was like super shy, it was just so nice just to see people who were like also inspiring me to work harder, right?
That you just be in the shadows, but
just biting my fingernails.
It's like a crowd of people, and they're like, "Right, Daniel," and you'd be in the shadows, just like, "Yes,"
blinking Morse code. But yeah, and then you know, just moving out, like, okay, like how do I bring that kind of environment now that I graduated and starting, you know, the we were called Faction, which is interesting because like Faction's kind of like defined as like something like kind of political, like a subgroup within a overall like political movement, whatever. Well, that's like one of the definitions we were going for. And the place that only like we could afford to use as a space for a venue was actually like also like this weird communist type of like underground thing where they had like a secret radio and like this place plus Faction, like I don't want like, you know, the FBI or CIA eyes on me. Exactly. I'm just trying to host some art shows, man.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's like an interesting dynamic. But yeah, and that's just something I kind of naturally just kept up with. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
hell yeah. Well, I think we're good-ish.
Good-ish.
If anyone wants to follow you, it's Segrove.
Yeah, Segrove. I need to update my website, so be patient with me with that. But yeah, just usually I post on Segrove.
Speaking of No Wave, did the video
you're off mic
thing did the video thing come out for it yet? Or?
Yeah. It's been out for a month and a half, maybe 2 months.
Okay.
Which is really cool.
That's like the course you did or something.
Yeah. Just because I know like a lot of people follow me are also international, and it's like I wanted to do something because I know I can't go everywhere with the workshops.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like a nice way to you know, get that checked off. But it was a trip, kind of just having someone film me. Like I've never been on camera, so I was like super camera shy. Like I remember like my intro was like, "Thanks for watching the video." I was like, "Oh wait, no, we didn't even start yet." like I was like so bad. It was like it took me like 20 takes just to do like an intro, like a 1 minute intro. I was like, wow. My respect for actors just grew so much. It's like, for sure. Damn, like, you know, I don't know how you do it.
Intros, they're a lot of pressure, I know.
Right, no, there you go.
I did see like a mini, you posted like a mini clip or something on that.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, I want to watch that. I didn't. It was like, I think you were talking about like going into the abstracting the figure, but like going into it easily, like not going in full speed or something. I was like, oh, that's like.
For sure. Yeah. It's it's a good balance. I think especially with I notice a lot of people follow me or people who have the kind of traditional skills, but they want to push it, right? They want to find that kind of bridge that I found. So I try to help them with that just because that's all I do in the studio is just constantly experimenting. So it's like something that's always like fresh in my head as far as like how to work out that process. So hopefully just what when people tell me to my face, I'm good at explaining that. So
yeah, you don't want to hear what we say behind your back.
Exactly right. It's dark. It's just not cool, man.
Awesome. Yeah.
And when did you say your Modern Eden show was going to be?
That is May 11th. I
Okay,
think. Yeah.
right on.
So it's coming up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh
Be
yeah.
a good time for us
Are
to record with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Coming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So all you people in the city, go check it out.
Yep. Modern Indian, May
Definitely.
11th.
Hell yeah. It's a good spot too.
Brought to you by the
people.
great Emilio Villalba.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, but again, one more time. Hell yeah. Nice.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. We finally locked you in.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. Like, you know, I build this stuff in my head so much, right? I'm a warrior, but yeah.
Yeah. I know. I actually I listened back to the Artist Decoded episode, like not the whole thing, but I listened back to it because I was like, how nervous is like, because you were like, I'm pretty like awkward or whatever. And I was like, let me go listen. And I was listening. I was like, he's all right.
I can't listen to it without cringing. Just like, you know,
but I can't
cold
listen.
sweats. You know,
I don't listen to the episodes that we record just because I cringe of my own.
for sure.
Shit.
Well, also you do so much. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
enough about me. Let me just move on. Yeah,
I'm just also tired of cringing at myself.
for sure. Yeah,
Every once in a while, I'll listen to an episode. I'm like, okay, yep, still
yeah.
disgusting, Josh.
Yeah. Still missing all those social cues that should be obvious. I'm just,
Yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
If you could 5-star rate and review us.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, on Yelp or was this on?
Oh, on
Yeah.
iTunes. Yeah.
Even on Yelp.
Yelp, if you can find us on there. I don't think we have
Quick
it.
survey and you know.
Yeah.
I just really want to push down those 2-star ratings we got on iTunes.
The bacon, blue cheese, jalapeno poppers were a 5-star on Waiting to Dry.
Right. Yeah. Is this the advertisement section where you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oops. But yeah. Rate and review. Fuck those 2 stars. You guys can please wash them out. I didn't even know we had 2 stars, but
Well, being here, I just gotta say this is a 5-star experience.
oh,
You know,
thank you.
I've had a great time. And the check goes out to Dan.
And it's like, all right, let's cut the sponsor. So this has been sponsored by Daniel Segrove.
Right? Yeah. Check out his video workshop now. Discount code. No.
Yeah. How can they find it? Actually, we should probably promote.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No Wave Academy. Just
Hell yeah.
if you just go to the No Wave Instagram page, there's just a link right in their bio. So it's pretty straightforward.
Thanks for not stopping the podcast earlier. We should have probably done this.
Yeah, for sure.
I was like, oh, we're good here, right, Sergio? See, this way he keeps me in check. I'm like, I think we talked all the things. But yeah. I mean, from what I saw, I was like, fuck, I need to check that out.
Yeah.
I know David Chaffetz did one too.
Yeah,
That looks cool too.
John Wentz, Steve Kim's coming out with a really cool one.
Oh,
Steve
nice.
Kim's cool. Yeah, those are some good people.
I'm thinking really hard. I don't want to miss any names. But I think Oh, and Nick Runge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Amazing watercolor. I got to see that because they sent me one to like prepare for it, and like he's just so talented. Like how he like effortlessly he makes it. You know?
It's offensive.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, those watercolor guys out there,
Yeah.
they do it so well. You're like, okay, well, get out of here.
And then I try watercolor, just a big hole in the middle, like a big pool of water. Like,
Yeah. How come I can't? How come every time I rub away stuff and
exactly.
the paper's all just like
Layers and layers
clumped
of papers coming up. Like,
Yeah.
do you constantly redo areas? Is that the technique?
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, yeah, go check out his workshop. What else is there? Is there anything else? Websites on the.
I'm just getting married, man. I gotta focus on
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Start that
Congrats on that,
adulthood, dude.
Yeah. Your art's gonna get so much more mature.
Right, I know.
Oh yeah.
Crazy.
Get ready. All about death pretty soon.
Exactly. Yeah. Disillusion of marriage. No. Right out the gate.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been Waiting Drive. If you're still listening, fuck off.
Awesome, man. Thanks, dude. I had fun.
Yeah, that was